Welcome back to the VariantCast on the Racial Draft Podcast Network. I am the Variant from Earth 718, the Brooklyn version of Mike, and I am joined by variants of all types. Unfortunately, we had to let loose some charges, so the variants from last week are not present anywhere else on the timeline. Variant number one, Kia. Which variant are
Hello.
you?
I am the main variant, and the one that if you, I don't know, blow me up, and the whole world blows up. So therefore, I'm very important.
So you're the sacred timeline variant of Kia? Is that what
Yes,
we're hearing? A likely
that's
story.
exactly what I said. Pretty
So,
much what I said.
so Randy, which variant are you?
Well, clearly I am the Randy Smith of Earth 1619. So, hello there. Welcome.
So the ultimate Randy, is that what you were trying not to mention?
That is correct.
And we are joined by a brand new variant, someone who has escaped the timeline and is just living it up in the TVA. Heather, which variant are you?
Still to be determined, actually.
Oh yes, because Heather is live responding to the Loki episode 2 as we podcast. So we will be getting her live reactions as she interjects. What is happening now so far in the episode?
So it just started. It looks like they are in medieval times.
All right.
They're looking, a variant's been detected, and now we wait and see.
Okay, we'll keep checking in as our live episode correspondent with your reactions. But we will try not to overly spoil you. You know, earmuffs every now and then. But what did everybody think of the episode overall?
I loved it. Like the favorite part of the episodes just in general is, I mean, obviously all the cool time stuff, but you kind of get like this philosophical existential stuff going on, and it's like, yes, this is right up my alley.
Yeah, for sure. You know, the ruminations on the nature of free will and predetermination or predestination, rather, you know, continued from week 1. And you know, I mean, the chemistry between Owen Wilson's Mobius and Tom Hiddleston's Loki was in full display this week, just like it was last week. Obey, as it were.
Little spouse.
Now, Kia, what else did you think about the episode?
I mean, like, I was taken back by the whole episode. I mean, how they put it all together. It was just so deep and just drew me in. I couldn't keep my eyes off of it.
I feel like that's a little bit less about the plot of the episode and a little bit more about Tom Hiddleston's body. But, you know, that's just me.
That
I mean, it's a
actually
valid
probably
point
true.
regardless.
Well, yeah, this episode, you know, wasn't as heavy on the exposition as the last episode. There was a little bit more action going on, but that didn't mean that there weren't some plot bombs dropped. And let's talk about, I guess, the first plot bomb. Do we think, or actually, I'll rephrase the question.
Rephrase the question.
Has our understanding of what the time variance authority does, has it changed any from week 1 to week 2? I guess I'll start with you, Kia.
I think a little bit. Well, I think they went more in depth with what they actually do, and also I think they also showed a little bit of, like, you know, the time guys, the 3 time guys, I forget their names, that never, the timekeepers. Yeah, see, time guys. Everybody knew that. The fact that, like, nobody is, like, really seen it, like, you're starting to realize that, like, they're kind of not in, they're in the picture but not in the picture, or at least they say that they're in the picture. But, you know, it makes me think that maybe they're not really there.
I mean,
maybe
like
they
God,
created it and they're gone, you know?
like
Yeah,
God. Yeah, you know, I mean,
like God.
I mean, I didn't think that they were like everyday presences in the first episode. You know, I was always skeptical of what, I mean, not necessarily skeptical of whether they exist, but skeptical of what they do from on a day-to-day basis. It's not
I'm
like,
actually skeptical that they exist. I think that they might have existed, obviously, in order to create it. But I feel like they like said, you know, F this. I mean, think about it. How
Mhm.
long have they been doing that? Like, I'd check out.
I mean, but if that's the only thing that they do, I mean, you know.
I mean, the scale of their, you know, their purported knowledge and power is so vast that you
But like
couldn't.
the one and only. Wait, is that what it's? Yeah, what's the one that got the one above all?
Right. Well, I'm saying right, exactly the scale and scope of like what they are, you know, what they're purported to know or what power they're purported to have. It's unfathomable. So everybody's kind of like, you know, just going up. I mean, you basically get these characters who the only way they really are able to function is not really by questioning or not really by considering the scope of the power that they're supposedly in service of.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think that one thing that we liked about, or a lot of people liked about the TVA as an entity or as an idea, is that it really just seems like another bureaucracy, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like a combination of the library and the DMV, and you know, everyone kind of does their like predetermined roles, and they really don't go a little bit out. They don't go too far outside of their respective lanes.
Right.
And I think that setting up that kind of bureaucracy that is backed by something close to ultimate power, even if it's not ultimate power, is an interesting conceit. And like you said, this notion that there are these godlike beings behind it all, making all the decisions, kind of right off the bat in the first episode, kind of stretched credulity, and it was only made worse in my mind. I talked about this last week. The fact that they use kind of like a quasi religious mantra when they talk about the sacred timeline,
Mm-hmm.
you know, got my antenna up, because if they had used some sort of like quasi scientific analysis, I might have been more apt to believe them. But it's like the time keepers brought order to the universe, and now we just follow what they want. I was like, all right, well, that can't be corrupted. Of course not. You know, people who won't
I mean,
challenge
but
people who won't
honest,
challenge things from on high. Where have we seen that go wrong before?
but I'm saying at the same time, you could kind of argue that even people who have like who achieve what it is that they achieve, even if they did so from a scientific perspective, there's people who their own biases. They will try to use those scientific discoveries to create their own biases or whatever. And I you know, as somebody who is a person of faith,
Mhm.
I'm a believer.
Fair enough.
Um,
Fair enough.
but I you know,
I'm a believer.
I get that, you know, it is sort of more feelings based, I guess. More the connotations of religion is more of like a feelings based and faith based sort of thing. But we are, you know, sentient beings just in general. So you know, by the very order of whatever we discover, we still can kind of paint that with our own perceptions too. And so you can have somebody who is, we get these kind of mad scientist characters all the time who are
Mhm.
like, oh, we're going to do this crazy Machiavellian thing for science. And it's like, no, actually, you just kind of want an excuse to kill up these people.
That's
You're
fair,
not,
but I would say that if there was, I mean, have you ever seen the show Quantum Leap?
I have not.
All right, so I'm gonna not go all the way in depth about Quantum Leap, but Quantum Leap is a science fiction type show where they do
Mhm.
time travel and they get involved and they make changes in the timeline. And there's a computer that is supposedly running the simulations of what any change that the time traveler makes, whether
Mhm.
it's for the benefit or for the detriment
Right.
of like it tries not to make moral decisions, but it still kind of says, well, this is more likely to happen if you
Mhm.
do this, or this is more likely to happen if you do this. And it kind of helps to guide the main character's behavior, because he knows that like he wants to do the right thing, but if he does the quote unquote right thing in the moment, it might hurt some things down the line. So there's a conflict there, right?
Mhm.
Like, to the extent that the TVA is meant to be um, cultivating or curating rather the, whether you want to call it the sacred timeline or the best timeline or the ideal timeline, whatever you want to call it, the fact that they're entrusted with this maintenance of the timeline, inherent in there is the question of why. Inherent
Mhm.
in it is the question of why this timeline above another timeline.
Right. Right.
And I think that when you approach it from a quasi-scientific perspective, there's a reason why it can be explained, or that they set out to try to find a reason to explain it, versus what they did in the first episode, which is just basically saying this is the timeline and we can't deviate from it, and not really explain what makes the divine timeline the divine timeline.
Well, I mean, in sort of I don't really even know if this is necessarily pushing back on what you're saying. Like I just let me just, preface what I'm going to say by saying that. But I mean, in it sort of makes me think that they view time not necessarily. I mean, like they're using science, I guess, because obviously there has to be, like, how did they get the tech, but they're using it. Uh, the goal was more of a philosophical, like, end. You kind of have to be like, okay, well, what exactly? Why would you even care about preserving time anyway? Like, what
Mhm.
basically what would be the purpose behind that, unless you had some sort of subjective, kind of mortal stake in it, I guess.
Well,
You
what they
know,
did,
you
I mean, they did say in the first episode, and I'm willing to buy a lot of what they said in the first episode haven't actually come to pass. The fact that there was this multiversal war,
Mhm.
and it was chaos as all these timelines and universes fought for supremacy. And if you live through something like that, there is something beneficial to some kind of peace accord, where
Mhm.
it's determined that in order to prevent another multiversal war, everyone kind of get on the same page. Now, whether that means 5 timelines or 50 timelines or one timeline is kind of, your mileage may vary on that.
Right.
And the fact
Right.
that they settled on the one, again, raises questions as to why that one. But I'm willing to acknowledge that chaos over order. I tend to be more to the order side of things than to the chaos side of things. So I'm sympathetic to the idea of someone keeping things in line, particularly if we're talking about the multiverse, given that I'm
Mhm.
a noted multiverse hater. Um, you know, um, I'm all about the idea of there being people who
One
say,
consistent thing.
right,
Right.
one timeline above all else. But I'm still skeptical of how they determined which was the timeline, especially given that we know, well, again, this was the crux of the question that I had asked. In the
Mhm.
first week, I was pretty clear that these reset charges were pretty much destroying all of existence in this variant timeline. Or is that how you see it, Randy?
Well, I sort of see it like that, but they are, I guess, destroying whatever thing is aberrant, like whatever is not supposed to be there. So I mean, yes, they are like destroying, but again, like you sort of think as far as uh literally pruning a tree or pruning a plant or whatever, branches, haha. but you know, they're trying to figure out like what thing looks like it's dead or what thing looks like it's, you know, not uh thriving, and so we clip it off.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
but the thing is, you know, sort of thinking about it mechanically, like you're still, even if you say, okay, there's been 5 minutes of a new timeline,
mhm.
that's still 5 minutes of an entire universe having existed that you have to get rid of.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, you kind of get back to the point of like what is acceptable to allow to change and what isn't, and it you know that um you I could like, you know, sit here and speculate what
Mhm.
they could, you know, come up with as
I mean,
far as like,
that's definitely what I'm asking you to do. So keep
no,
going.
as far as like philosophically, like one of the main things that you one of the main things that we argue over in you know, as part of the classes and things that I went through was like, oh well, what if you had a train that was on a, you know, on a track and it was gonna either hit these people or hit these people, and you try to
Mhm.
figure out like which one, like okay, that's basically what you're trying to do. You're trying to mitigate as little harm as possible, and you know, mitigating harm doesn't necessarily mean that no harm is done. It's what do you consider the acceptable parameters of harm being done.
Right, but what I'm saying, what I'm implying, or at least suggesting, is
Mm-hmm.
that anytime there's a variant, it's not one train on a track, it's two trains on a track, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going from one train that's meant to be heading to its destination, you know,
Right.
whatever, New York to Chicago, right? And then all of a sudden another train veers off and is heading to Detroit, and
Right.
it's your job to be like, no, oh, we only want the train that goes from New York to Chicago. So screw the train that goes to
we
Detroit.
blow up.
You
We
know,
blow up
we
the
blow
train
up the
to
train that goes.
Detroit.
Yeah, we blow up the train that goes to Detroit. Otherwise, you've now got two trains. That was my understanding of what the TVA was doing. Kia, are you thinking similarly that this is what the TVA is trying to do?
I think she's distracted by Tom Hiddleston and his peen.
I mean, he some things are what was it? Glorious purpose.
Yeah,
He is what
he
was
is
it?
burdened with that
He is
glorious
burdened
purpose.
with glorious pain. Yeah.
Yes, he is. All hail
So
Asgard.
are you going to help him unburden his glorious pain, Kia?
Yes. Yes, I am.
But seriously, it was that your understanding of what they were doing in the first episode when they were cleaning up the timelines, or did you have a different understanding of what they were doing?
I kind of just thought they're like they tried to break it down and tell you exactly what they were doing, but I don't know. Like when I saw a different part, like in the second episode,
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of confused. Like I don't know if they really like they say they're doing one thing, but I feel like there's something else going on.
Yeah, that's for
Because
sure.
the judge makes me feel the female judge, and you know I'm all for female power,
Yeah,
but like I don't know if I trust her. I
that's
kind of
fair.
feel like
I mean, you know,
I don't want to say I want to
she's a
say
black
low key,
woman,
but
and
I don't
we,
want
you know,
anybody to get confused.
low
Oh,
key, high key. Yeah.
low key,
Um,
high key, but not the low key. You know what I'm saying? Like low key, like
listen, I am
okay. I feel as though like she she's up to something,
fair.
and also like I feel like, you know, and this is just me maybe as a brown woman, I'm a little upset that the other brown woman that is like, you know, in charge of
B19.
the cute, yes,
Yeah.
like how come she has to be so, why do they have her being so aggressive?
I mean, her job is literally to
Be aggressive.
be aggressive.
I mean,
Be aggressive.
I mean, she could just be like, you know,
She's like a
dictating
time
to
cop.
others, like, yeah, she's like a time cop, but like on a whole nother level of angry.
Yeah. So are you saying that if you were
which I
doing
don't
that job,
appreciate.
you would have a softer touch, Kia?
Yeah, I would. I
She
would,
would
because at the end of the
absolutely
day,
have a softer touch with someone else.
Well, fair. That
yes,
is
I
a,
would. Yes, I would. I'd be like,
that-
you know what? I feel as though he needs to stay by my side. I feel as though I'm gonna need a one-on-one with him to
Now,
really like work through
would
our
you abuse the
issues.
time technology to make it last at
Yes, I would. It would go in slow motion.
one third
Yeah.
speed? Yeah.
Yes, I would slow-mo him and
Yes.
probably do things that are not consensual, but he can't say
Oh,
no
no.
because I got there before he could
Oh,
say
no.
no.
The views expressed involving non-consensual sexual activity are not shared by.
I mean, I got that
Not
idea.
anymore.
I got that idea from Mike. I just say, I don't know. Just kidding. But no, honestly, like, yeah, oh, that's a good idea. Like, can you imagine just having something to just like slow-mo everybody else? Like,
Yes,
that'd be so amazing.
I imagine it. I imagine it quite frequently. Yes, but no. In all seriousness, what I was saying is that I sort of picked up like in that first scene of the first episode that when they let off the charges of pruning the timeline, they were like, oh yeah, we're just gonna wipe out this aberrant timeline so it doesn't exist. You know, like that's how you maintain one timeline. You have to get rid of every single other timeline. So good luck, variant, you know, like every single other variant in this timeline, you're gone, you know, because there can only be one.
It is possible that there is some other explanation, but I don't really see it because like you saw in when Loki was in the court proceeding thing and like the other variant tried to escape and the guy pruned him, and pruning means death. You are gone.
Yeah, you are obliterated from existence.
Right. So I mean, I am sure that there's possibly some other setting, like you know, like I mean, even the police are not that wild. Like the taser is not just set to like death automatically. So I'm pretty sure the other.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just. I'm pretty sure there's some other setting, like you know, that some other way in which.
Well, yeah, there's a slow-mo setting. The slow-mo setting, we saw that. You know,
there's other settings, but there is some point at which destruction, like literal obliteration, is an option.
Yes.
My whole thing is how could okay, so Loki didn't know about this place. Everybody like really like we all saw Endgame. How did that guy not know that he could just go pick up some, you know, some infinity stones because they use them as paperweights over there? Like, I don't understand. Like, he went through all this trouble to get the infinity stones, and all he needed to do was just fuck up a timeline, get over there, fuck them up, take it, and then leave. Like, that would have been a lot shorter movie.
But to be fair, like, the infinity stones only work. The infinity stones only work in the timelines that they're native to. So he can't take a different infinity stone to a different timeline.
Yeah, I mean they're not always assembled like that. Like they kind of just.
Oh, he could have taken them all and just seen which ones work.
Well, he would have to do a whole lot of multiverse hopping though.
Yeah, and they would find him immediately and then obliterate him.
Right.
Which was
so. Here's my question.
Sure.
How does Doctor Strange play in all this?
Wait, correspondence. Where are you in the episode, Heather?
So Loki is currently explaining to Mobius that the variant is hiding in the apocalypses that happen in the timelines.
Yes.
Because within an apocalypse, there's nothing but chaos, and it's going to be destroyed no matter what.
Right.
But anyways, so Doctor Strange is a time contorter.
Well, yes.
Right?
So here's my theory on the Doctor Strange thing and how that somewhat ties into the TVA.
Oh, we're in Pompeii now. Sorry.
No problem. No, listen. You, everybody who's listening to this has seen the episode. You're the only one that's getting spoiled. But so remember in Infinity War when Doctor Strange talked about the 14 million possible futures and the one future where they win. It has been my working hypothesis that one future where they win is the sacred timeline. that something about what happened in Endgame and something about the Avengers winning leads to whatever else is to come that leads to the formation of the TVA. So when they mentioned in the first episode that it was okay that the Avengers messed around with time because they were meant to, it was because it was part of this whole one future out of 14 million. But the other, 13,999, whatever number, like the TVA is out there wiping them out, because they're not part of the sacred timeline.
I mean, as somebody who has recently read Exiles and a couple of other like timey-wimey comics that
Mhm.
sort of try to get you to feel like there's aberrant realities that shouldn't exist. Like there's actually a couple of them I've read that have had kind of that running theme in them. But as somebody who's read something like that, I'm very interested in the idea of just them kind of picking and choosing from each of these different timelines, and I guess how that factors into like the different characters that we might see from shows and movies and things that previously have existed that might not have been considered quote unquote canon.
Mm.
I
Yes,
mean,
I
that's
mean
that's
that
that's what it feels like. It feels like it's kind of their end to decide. Okay, well, maybe this show or maybe this movie will be, considered. Parts of it will be considered canon, and parts of it will be left out, or what have.
Well, so this ties into something that I had mentioned last week, which
You.
is that, you know, whenever you get involved in a time travel story, and particularly when you get involved in a time loop story,
Uh-huh.
everything
Ooh.
that's, the concept of cause and effect should be questioned. We don't know exactly when this takes place. We don't, we know that there was that element of
Yes, we do.
we know that there was the element of where Loki got the Tesseract in 2012 and he got snatched up at that point. But we don't know where the main crux of their existence has kicked in. We don't know when the TVA was formed. We
Mhm.
don't know at what point in the MCU's timeline the TVA formed. We don't know whether they formed early before the MCU even kicked off, or
Mhm.
or whether they've seen all the movies all the way through Phase 10, and then they formed the TVA and they went back around and they started policing the timeline. We don't like we can, because of how our minds work, we assume that they're running concurrent with what we've seen. But in all reality, they could be at the end of the story.
Yeah.
And they could be kind of backtracking and trying to make sure that they get where they need to go. And when you
Honestly,
consider, sorry,
I'm sorry.
no, go
That
ahead.
would explain why, like in real life, why we have these moments where we remember things as being different than they actually are when we look them up now.
Right, like deja vu could just be the
Not
TVA
even deja
having.
vus, but like the Bernstein Bears.
Oh yeah, what's it called?
That is a hill I am willing to die on. Okay, that is not how it was spelled when I was a child. Things like that, and that would.
Oh yeah, like when people like remember certain things and like they're like no, like who was it?
Febreze.
No. What's
That's
his
not
name?
the same logo.
Kazam.
No, not Kazam. Nelson Mandela.
Oh, the
Mandela
Mandela effect.
The Mandela effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
we all remember him dying, and then other people don't. Like, what has happened?
It's called variant timeline that got mashed back into the main timeline, and they didn't clean it up. They were not properly cleared from the timeline. Is what I'm saying.
So everybody's memories are correct, even if they're wrong.
Yep.
Right.
If
if time has changed.
The captain lady, do you think she's a Virgo? I feel like she gives off Virgo energy.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about the Hunter B19?
No, the lady that's in charge of the TMV, TVA.
Judge Renslayer,
Judge.
Gugu and
I think, yeah,
Bakugo.
they both give off Virgo energy. They're very controlling.
No.
No, okay,
I bet
all right.
angry little
Side note.
cop lady. I would put her more as like a
A Virgo.
no. I would put her as more of like a Capricorn.
Interesting.
Mm.
Kia, did you
Yeah.
watch Utopia?
I binge watched Utopia during an insomnia time
Did
frame.
you recognize the actress from Utopia from this episode?
Hold on just for a second, because I don't think I did. I didn't, like, when I was watching it at 2 this morning, or 3 this morning or whatever, I didn't go like, oh yeah, that's somebody. Oh, wait, I think I did. Wait, hold on just for a second. Let me just double check. Yes. Oh, but yeah, Jessica Hyde. Yeah, that's what I did actually. When I saw her face, I was like, oh, that's that girl. I forgot it was Utopia, but I knew it was like Hyde, Jessica Hyde.
Yep, Jessica Hyde, the actress. I'm for some reason her name is escaping me right now, but luckily
Sasha Lane. I mean,
Thank you.
but you know.
Nice. That's why we have you
Mhm.
as our Black woman correspondent.
Yeah.
So right, so she's Agent B20. So we've got B19 and we've got B20, and
Does
I don't
that
know
mean
if
that Jessica Hyde is just part of this, or
it might mean that. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you picked up on it from this episode, but there was
she had a speech impediment?
no, that there was a little bit of a nod to the fact that Ravonna Renslayer was herself a former hunter. I don't know if
Oh yeah.
so. You know, the hunters are very ethnically diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it was B15 is One Me, the actress, Hunter B15, and it's C20 with Sasha Lane. My fault, not B20.
Ah. Oh wait, yeah, it was C20. Wait, was it was it 220? Or
C20.
just
It was
okay. I was just trying to visualize her helmet.
yeah. But I like the little you know, they made they got the benefit of the 80s with doing Holding Out for a Hero, right? That's the name of the song, right? Or is it just I Need a Hero? I don't remember.
I need a hero.
That's a big
Go ahead,
karaoke
sing
song. No, we'll
can
use that
we
as
hear
the
a little bit of that, Mike? Because I know you love singing that song.
no, we use that as the outro music for this week's episode. Stay tuned.
Okay.
As we
Facts.
we will sing Hero as we end the show. But
Hold on just for a second. Heather, where are you right now in the episode?
So there, Mobius is fighting with Desk Lady to go to Alabama for the hurricane. She's probably a Virgo.
I feel that.
But
I mean,
angry cop lady is
Capricorn vibe.
not. She's honestly, I'd put
Maybe
her at a
Taurus.
Capricorn Aquarius cast. Oh no.
No, Aquarius is
Yep.
maybe a
Because
Sag
it makes
Capricorn.
No, I could see her being more on the Aquarius cusp because she is so defiant of anything outside of what would be normal because of the Capricorn. But you can see that she wants to, but she just can't.
So keep watching. I want to see how this plays out. I want to see how this Aquarius energy plays out. You see, Kia?
Whoa, don't bring up Aquarius energy. Yo, okay.
I think you might be
Total
a Kia 15. You know, if you were cast in the role of Time Hunter, I feel like you'd enforce the rules.
Oh yeah,
Legitimate
Loki would
Capricorn.
have a lot of rules.
I'll let Loki give me rules.
Ooh.
He is the god of mischief. He is the god of
Just
mischief.
here to stir the pot.
I mean, he does
Mhm.
making people kneel. So
That is a fair point. So speaking of
his curiosity could be in my pants.
speaking of mischievousness, was anyone else happy to see Miss Minutes make another appearance?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would like to see Tara Strong like be a more significant character, but I like the character. It's a cute little addition.
I thought it was kind of
Cute
cool
little
that she.
addition. Did you call her cute little addition because she's a woman?
I called her a cute little addition because she's cute and diminutive.
She is literally an anthropomorphic clock, but and she's animated. Like, I was shocked to see her just like hanging out, like, hey there, Loki. And of course, Loki tried to kill her because.
Oh, look at little floaty hobbit.
So, what did you guys think about the whole? I don't know what to call it. The blind spot, I guess, of the concept of the apocalypse being a dead end timeline that was undetectable to the rest of the time variance authority.
That just means that they obviously are really good at their job. I mean, it took Loki, like, so however long they've been in existence, they didn't realize, like, he was there like a whole 5 fucking minutes, and they didn't realize that there was a gap. There's like, hey, there's a little flaw in your logic right here. There's a little flaw in your system. Seriously?
I
know.
They
mean,
all need to be fired.
I feel like it's not necessarily a matter of like a lack of intelligence. I feel it's like they're so confident in what they're doing that they think that others wouldn't outthink them. So
Yeah,
like you wouldn't be too paranoid if you feel like, oh, ha ha ha, these lesser beings, these primitive fools, they would never do this, that, and the other. And so
So
you
you
don't
think
really,
it's ego?
I do. I think that it's ego, and I think that they're I mean,
Will
for
he watch it?
Oh,
I think that anytime you have like a predetermined procedure, there's always the possibility of someone trying to exploit the loopholes in that procedure. Um,
yeah.
so so it totally makes sense
That's an
that.
Aquarius trait.
Mhm.
Loki's an Aquarius.
He might be. Like, it totally
Tom
makes sense that if
Hiddleston is an
Mhm.
Aquarius.
Is he though?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Loki is technically of June, so he's a Gemini or Cancer.
you know what? Gemini makes sense because he's Loki.
Mm-hmm.
But
And he talks a lot too. Yeah, that's definitely a Gemini trait.
but yeah, I think it totally makes sense that if you know that everything's by the book and that they don't really deviate from their script, that all you need to do is ask yourself, like, what is aberrant to them and what would kind of fall beneath their notice. And it kind of makes sense. If I mean, we talked about this a little bit in our DM group, but the notion that if their job is to monitor time and different timelines, that if any point where time quote unquote ends is a possible place that they wouldn't pay attention to, because there can be no variance from a timeline endpoint.
I mean, yeah, if you that's like if somebody throws out some major mega billionaire corporation or whatever throws out their garbage or like their toxic waste or whatever, nobody would really think that somebody would try to salvage something out of that waste. I mean, you would be like, okay, well, we have determined, our widget, whatever thing we manufacture, whatever thing we make or whatever service we put out, we think that's the valuable product, and whatever else we don't need, we kind of view it in that trash or refuse.
Well, ironically, you know what I was thinking of? That movie that came out a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago rather, Army of the Dead, where they were nuking Vegas. Sorry, spoiler alert. And
Spoiler alert.
and
Loki
people were
met Loki.
like, oh, if we
Oh
go in
wait,
there and we steal money from Vegas before they nuke it, it won't be traceable because they won't know that the money had been stolen.
Exactly.
It's that kind of logic,
You,
that if they're wiping the slate clean, so to speak, then you can steal from that slate before it gets wiped clean.
yeah, I mean,
hey,
they're basically operating under the idea that that if they're going to nuke that place, they've already deemed that whatever in there is expendable.
Mm-hmm.
And Loki met Loki. That's where Heather is right now.
Yeah, they're walking to the store right now.
To the fake Walmart.
Oh shit!
But I did have one bone to pick with that logic. I thought that they were really loose with what the definition of an apocalypse was. Typically, when we talk about an apocalypse, we talk about like the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. But the fact that they were just like, oh yeah, it's an apocalypse for this one town, that counts. I was like,
that's how I'm gonna talk from here on out. I'm like, I just went through an apocalypse.
Right, exactly. It's like
in my bathroom.
Exactly. It was an apocalypse, but whatever. And a poopcalypse. Sorry, that was what I was looking for.
Poopcalypse. That's even better. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like when it made sense that they were saying that Ragnarok was an apocalypse because it was at least the destruction of an entire world. But
ADD moment when you say Ragnarok, I think of the Netflix TV show Ragnarok, and
I need to watch
really
that
pretty
show.
too.
I really do need to watch that show.
Yeah, sorry, ADD moment. Sorry.
No
Continue.
problem. Yeah, but so it was funny is that when he said Ragnarok on the show, I didn't think he was talking about the movie Thor Ragnarok. I thought he was talking about like the concept of Ragnarok, as it exists across mythology. So it threw me off, and I was like, oh wait, he's talking about. We all saw that. We all saw what happened in Thor Ragnarok, and I was willing to say, well, they said that was like a level 7 apocalypse, and I was kind of like, all right, it was destruction of an entire city. But then, spoiler alert to Heather, they said that the Walmart was a level 10 apocalypse. And I was like, are the numbers going down? Is it maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way?
To be fair, I mean, if like the way that they kind of phrased it was that this quote unquote Walmart is like hugely expansive, like almost like it's just a vastly expanded thing. So almost, I guess in my mind, I was kind of thinking like, how like a college town or something like that, like that whole campus would be just kind of encompassed under the college.
Here's the thing, Randy. No disrespect to Alabama, but much disrespect to Alabama.
I mean, a little bit of Alabama.
Destroying any part of Alabama should not be construed as an apocalypse. Sorry.
Personally, I feel like you could. I don't know.
Randy feels like Alabama lives matter.
I'm pretty sure I didn't say that.
I'm not saying that their lives don't matter. I'm just not putting it on the level of apocalypse. It's like,
I mean, I don't know. I guess just the idea, the idea of like how
they're gonna get a bath.
No, I mean it felt like the way that they said how expansive it is. You would almost be like, if it's no survivors and stuff like that, just complete and utter destruction, then for that little limited area, it would feel like an apocalypse because basically all trace of life out of there would be wild, like, So I guess I don't really know.
Into slavery apocalypse.
Look, like I said, if we were if I'm going to be honest, if we were on Twitter and someone was like, "This is an apocalypse," we would roast the fuck out of them.
Well, I mean, that's true, but I guess you would have to kind of like reassess what exactly what scale would entail what counts as an apocalypse, because
let's go over this said scale, Randy. What do you think the scale should be?
No, but that's my point. I'm not saying necessarily that the phrasing of it is correct, but I guess it kind of makes me feel like I need to reassess what I would like, because to somebody, their whole world is over. So, it wasn't like some, oh, wow, my house is ruined. It's like, no, I died, family died, everybody in my vicinity got wiped out all the way.
And
So
that happens all the time, though.
Well, I mean, but that's
all the time.
It's something that we know that obviously it's not like a whole entire planet gets destroyed. I mean, obviously it's not gonna be like, oh, it's a Krypton. I just went through a Krypton. Like, no, you you survived or whatever. But it's still, I don't know. I guess it just
yeah. I got hung up on the terminology. Like if they had called it something else, I probably wouldn't have gotten like, my panties in a bunch, so to speak. But
like maybe call it a reset.
It's female Loki.
It really did just kind of get my, I don't know, I guess just the whole episode sort of got me in that philosophical mode. So I kind of did, double take and kind of, think back and like, what exactly, why don't I consider that an apocalypse? Or why don't I consider that like a world ending type event?
Is it because you looked at the definition?
Yeah, exactly. Is it because the rest of the world kept moving?
but at the same time, I mean, even like, the people on Pompeii, the world kept moving then too.
I know, which is why.
So in other words, like Katrina was an apocalypse. Is that what you're trying to say, Randy?
I'm saying that it's not necessarily the scale of what we would consider, but it could be considered in like a dramatic change of life type of event like that, I guess. And I don't know, it's weird.
Isn't that just a dramatic change of life? Can we get the actual definition of apocalypse, Mike?
I would not say that it is accurate, but I would say that it is valid in a subjective sense. That's all my point.
I'm here for you, Randy. We're gonna figure this out right now. I don't want you spiraling on episode 3.
So
let me retrieve my dictionary.
I'm just for the purpose of the podcast, there are 2 definitions according to Oxford Languages. So
make sure you say it in English.
I'm not going to say it with a British accent. No, I will not. So the first, the complete and final destruction of the world as described in the biblical book of Revelation. Obviously, that's not.
Does that fit? Yeah, so it doesn't fit Alabama. Nope.
Yes.
He went through the door.
An event involving destruction or damage on an awesome.
Honestly, another trucker. Scale. Son of a biscuit eater.
Yes. So theoretically, the secondary definition, destruction or damage on an awesome or catastrophic scale, I suppose that could fall in the realm of apocalypse. But
I do want to say that this entire time, I am not saying that the word is entirely correct in its usage. My only point was that it kind of got me thinking on a philosophical scale, just as far as our subjective understanding of what somebody's quote unquote world ending entails. I'm not done.
Like when you break up with your boyfriend, apocalypse.
Yeah. It's a spouse apocalypse. Yeah.
I wonder if they rate it by the number of people who die, and it has to be over a certain number of people.
Well, I think it has to be. I think if I was paying close enough attention, I think it has to kill every single person. I think there has to be no survivors because that makes sense. If there are survivors, then survivors will continue the timeline, and that fucks everything up. So it has to be sudden, catastrophic, and conclude enough people's or everyone's timeline at a particular time and place.
Hey Randy, how many people would you would you have to off, do you think, in order to call it an apocalypse?
Specifically,
just give me a number.
Specifically 500. If 499 people die, then it's cool.
Yeah. Like I said before, I was just hung up on the terminology. I don't mind the idea that there's like a catastrophic event that means
Do
that in
children count as whole people?
that they're two-fifths, sorry.
It's like
But
sorry, Mike.
but like I'm
Depends on if
like
they can walk
if
or not.
yeah, if they had used the term cataclysm rather
Right.
than apocalypse, like I would have rode with it and not thought much of it, you know?
yeah.
Because the storyline, the use of the term in the storyline was to say that it's a place where the TVA wouldn't think to look because there would be limited effect on the timeline based on the window of opportunity between when the variant arrives and when total destruction happens.
Right.
And but you got to be honest, there should be a ton of places where that situation arises. If again we go back to the scene, it kind of looked like it took 5 minutes for Loki to be like, boom, found it, Alabama, you know. And again, no disrespect, but much disrespect to Alabama. I don't think it's possible for Alabama to have an apocalypse. So you know,
Well,
No.
it was in the future.
Only a good cleansing. What?
It was in the
Heather,
future, so maybe it was maybe something changed and world, like US how we know it
So what
is
you're
now
saying
centered.
is so
so
you're
Trump
saying,
won another election is what you're saying.
What
so-
I'm
so
saying
what-
is that people learned you don't turn your back on family.
So what you're saying is
Ooh.
that Alabama became hostile and invaded other states and expanded their territory, and we should absolutely like treat them as suspicious because this is a potential future that
Don't
we.
be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Don't be
Well-
suspicious. Don't be suspicious. I mean,
So,
maybe.
So
Have
Heather,
you seen
you've
Crazy Hill
so Heather,
Jack?
you've seen the full episode now. I would like your
Yeah.
overall thoughts.
I'm angry with how it ended. I need more now.
Did you stay through the credits? Did you watch the credits?
I have it
Do people
paused
watch
right now
those?
because I was so angry.
Okay, because there are a lot of
Wait, do
clues in the
people
credits.
watch the?
There
Wait,
are
you
a
have
lot
to
of
look and
clues in the
watch the
credits.
credit.
Yes, there are clues in the credits.
Mhm.
Like,
I
what
watched
There's
the
clue?
last credit all the way through.
There's no post-credit scene, but there are clues in
Long time later,
Easter
doing
eggs,
all
as it were.
Oh, that's annoying. Like now I have to actually
Tom
look at
Hiddleston was
words.
an executive producer. Nice.
Oh, that's a little egg, a little Easter egg left for you. Mhm. How you like
So-
them apples?
So Heather, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on female Loki?
Not as hot as male Loki, Avi.
Not as hot as male Loki would still do.
I like it. I respect it.
Female Loki she's okay. I'm I have a lot of questions.
All right. Well,
Wait, time out. Is one of your questions if Loki has sex with female Loki? Is he really just like having sex with
Technically,
himself?
that's masturbation.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
that would be like the least confusing version of sexual things that Loki has done.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, one of his babies is a horse
yeah.
with 6
no,
legs.
isn't it a
True.
wolf? Isn't it a wolf? No.
You have a wolf,
That
you
is
have the
true.
snake, you have the horse.
Loki has the Midgard serpent and has
Yeah.
Sleipnir, which is Odin's steed, which is an 8-legged horse, and has the Fenris wolf, who is going to, I believe, be part of literal Ragnarok. So that's
Isn't
in
Loki-
mythology, not the comic. So
Technically, according to Norse mythology, isn't Loki like the first like trans god?
No, gender fluid.
I
So
mean-
he's a
Gender fluid, okay.
shapeshifter. So he will become whatever he needs to be in order to correctly stir the pot and poke the buttons and get the rise
he's
up.
part of like
Mm.
numerous different pantheons have multi-gender or gender fluid deities.
The Hawaiians have some too.
He's-
Multiple.
So this ties into the theory that I posited on the first episode, of the variant cast, which is that I predict that this variant of Loki, Lady Loki, as it were, is actually a futuristic version of our Loki, the protagonist of the show. That based on the knowledge that he accumulates through these few episodes, he becomes this Loki who is stirring up shit and, you know, got this big, massive plan.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't see that.
mm.
I think
It's fine. It's fine, you know.
I think it's possible, but at the same time, I'm the credits they gave a name. I forgot what the heck the lady's name was, but they
The actress,
yeah, no.
Sophia DiMartino.
No. Who the character that her name is credited as that she
Hold on.
It's just called the variant, I believe.
no that because it doesn't say it's like I think it's like right under Loki or like right under like it's like the second credit or something like that. It's not
Loki squared.
it's not Loki. It's some other name. I forgot what it was, but somebody said somebody I forgot who the heck it was. They brought up the name, and the name was actually like an allusion to
To a character
somebody
from the
who,
comic books.
yeah, and she ends up becoming like another version of the Enchantress, who I believe that she possibly could be a future character working with this other Loki.
Mhm.
I don't really know. Like it's so interesting that it's equally valid to assume that it could be a future version of Loki or it could be somebody working with Loki because the magic that we've seen from this character is not the same kind of stuff that we've seen from Loki himself.
It might be
Fair.
Doctor Strange.
I don't think it's Doctor
It's not
Strange.
Doctor Strange.
But I do.
You don't know that?
That would be a heck of a twist.
Doctor Strange like controls time and all that other stuff, and he might be pissed.
The
He
only
might have
thing
found
about
out about it and trying to take it all down.
remember, Doctor Strange doesn't like organically control time. It's because he had the time stone, and he no
Right.
longer has a time stone.
So Sophia is the one that's female Loki, right?
Yeah, Sophia DiMartino. Mhm.
The only things around her when her name comes up is tidy timeline. That's it. Just tidy timeline.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's an actual like list of like the names and like who plays who. So I'm trying to remember who it is, and I'm blanking on the name, but it was
Yeah,
it,
there is a page that has you know, who the actors
not
are
the
and who
actual
they play.
credit.
right.
Okay.
Early on in the credits. But like I said, first of all, never trust the credits until they're ready to tell you what the truth is.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, you got to think non-linearly when you're talking about time travel. You got to think, you know, at some point there's a time loop. Usually, you know, there's something that depends upon someone in the future knowing something that they found out in the past.
And on top
And
of that, we're not even just dealing with one timeline. Like
right.
it could have been a future that never happened as far as we subjectively are concerned, but oh yeah, actually in this potential future, or you know, even a potential future that kind of started it subjectively our past, but it's like, you know, I don't know. Time travel is
Yeah,
weird. So it's a
exactly.
lot of
Because the thing is, it bears questioning. In order for this Loki variant to outsmart the TVA, that
Mhm.
Loki variant would need to know the TVA's tactics.
Well, but
This version, the protagonist version, is becoming quite aware of the TVA's tactics. Who better than this variant to, you know, become disenfranchised, or sorry, not disenchanted rather,
yeah.
with the TVA and decide, oh, well, I need to take these guys down. And in the course of deciding to take these guys down, morphs into this antagonist Loki at some point in the indeterminate future. I mean, now this Loki could have her own origin story that we could find out in the next episode. But
Mhm.
until that gets revealed, I'm gonna hold on to my pet theory. That as what happens often in a lot of time travel shows, that a character comes around and becomes a later version of themselves.
Honestly, I have kind of my own sort of pet theory working, and nothing thus far has proved me to be wrong, so I'm sticking with it.
Mhm.
But I think that
But I need you to share it with the podcast listeners, Randy. Don't hold on to it.
yeah, I mean, I personally I think that there might be multiple Lokis at work.
Okay.
And so because I think that we're going to get um again, I'm kind of thinking way ahead. So I've been known to get ahead of myself, but I think that maybe we might see Kid Loki. We might see the older Loki that is like
Mhm.
more magically versed and stuff. Because we haven't really seen this version of Loki use like a whole variety of magical abilities.
Yes.
So this could very well be, whether she is an older Loki or whether she is a protege working with an older Loki. Because again, I don't think either one necessarily rules out that there's a lady Loki at work. But
Yeah.
I would very much like to see them uh be audacious with who the reveal is, because I don't think that it should be a straightforward, oh hey, see, I am the older version of you and therefore I am superior. Like I want to see kind of, some sort of mic drop, mind blown moment that we don't really see coming, as far as what exactly prompts this version of Loki to do what it is they're doing.
So
She is the variant.
right. So
I
I
found it.
agree that um, there are probably other Lokis that we will find, Loki variants that we will discover over the course of the show. I agree with that part.
Mhm.
But I also think that, we have the benefit of having read the comics and knowing that there is the precedent of there being a female Loki in the comics.
Yeah.
I would say that for like mainstream audiences, the idea of our Tom Hiddleston Loki turning into a female Loki is a bit of a mind blow for like a
That's
chunk of the
fair.
audience.
Yeah, how dare you? How dare you say that he would even do that?
I
Like,
mean, y'all wouldn't be that mad if she turned out to be just as good looking or better looking than him. I feel like everybody would be like, okay, well, you surprised me. I don't really like change, but I can live with it.
I mean, if
no,
this, listen,
no, I
here's the
need my
thing. If
Tom.
this show was not on Disney Plus, like if it was on HBO Max,
Mm-hmm.
I would be rooting for Loki on Loki action in the next episode. I won't root for this in Disney Plus because I know that
You don't
the
have to root for it. Tumblr is already way ahead of you. They are going to give that to you, whether or not
And
you.
so is Pornhub.
that is fair. And Randy, would you like to share the links to the Loki on Loki action in the show notes?
Oh well, it's bold of you to assume that I know where to find these things. And
as he puts it in the chat.
like
Yes.
I will for that I will delay sharing them with you. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
We can pretend like you don't already have it. Copy and pasted. Wink wink.
But no, listen, I mean, I'm open. I'm open to all the
You know what I'm open to? I'm
what are you
open to
open to?
Heather telling us about Norse mythology and her impression of the actual whole movie and what questions she has.
Okay.
So what about Norse mythology?
I don't know. Mainly talk about Loki and
Well,
how like
obviously.
sexual he is.
He literally will sleep with anything.
Yes, I'm in the running.
So he's like the Zeus of the Norse pantheon, but with a
But with like
focus.
less rape, less rape
Yeah,
incident.
less rape,
Mhm.
more excited about, just happy to be included.
Nice.
Yeah, he
So
had
he's not a
multiple.
Cosby. He's
Hey, he's a
Yeah,
Lenny Kravitz.
so
He's a Lenny Kravitz.
he's
he's a
okay, cool.
like a hearth and home. So he's like the ultimate like daddy figure if you look at him all the way through it. He is the god of hearth and home. Sure, he's the god of
Wait, you gotta unpack that one.
in fact, he's the daddy of the
Yes.
gods.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Unpack that, Heather.
so he's had multiple wives. Some of them he produced children with, others he didn't. One of them was a giant, produced multiples. As we know, Hela's not actually his
Wait,
sister.
he's
That
a
is his.
shapeshifter, right? So if he
Yeah,
did it with a giant, did he
maybe he's just.
shapeshift his dick?
Maybe he was already big enough to fulfill her.
Oh
Don't know.
shit! Oh shit!
You think? I like the way you think.
So he was with multiple different spouses. His last spouse was Segan. She was considered a child bride at the time because she was so much younger than him. They
We
had
can
What does
two
she
skip right
sound
over
children.
like?
that. We can skip right over
What
that
does
part.
she sound like?
Well, so this is where it gets really interesting because this takes us to Ragnarok. I have had a little bit of beer and I haven't eaten anything, so be patient with my pronunciations. Anyways, so their two children were used against Loki. So we all know about the punishment of Loki, right? Where he was held he was tied to a rock and the snake was over him, dripping venom on him, right?
Okay,
Were
I
y'all
didn't know
familiar
about
with this?
this. I'm
Okay,
just now finding about it now.
so this is how he was tortured. This was the torturing of Loki. So he was tied to the rocks, not with chains, but with the entrails of one of his children, because
Ooh.
the other was turned into a wolf and sent to attack the other child. And Narvi was used, his entrails, I think it was Narvi, his entrails were used to tether Loki to the stone. And Segan, being the loyal wife that she was, even though he was cheating on her and everything else, because he's God and he can fuck anything he wants to, she would go and carry a bowl and hold it over his head to collect the venom. And then she'd have to take it to dump it. And during the time that she took it to dump the venom, he would scream in agony and pain because it was killing him. And she would go back and hold it over it. So she's known as being the loyal wife, the lover of love, the protector of a spouse, but also the goddess of mourning lost children and the protector of lost children, because she lost both of hers. So when we say ultimate daddy figure, he's the god of hearth and home. If you're pagan, then you know that if you want to call on someone to protect your home and protect the children in your home, you call on Loki.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about him. Tom Hiddleston plays him beautifully. Tom Hiddleston is beautiful. Loki is beautiful, and he gets all of those little nuances of the mischievousness, and yet the air of, while wanting to be mischievous, still wanting to protect. You can see that while it goes. That's very much who Loki embodies as an actual deity and who he is in that pantheon. So Hiddleston did an absolutely beautiful job of portraying him.
Okay. So where do you think I mean, obviously at the end of the episode, we see him jump into the portal alongside Lady Loki. Where do you think the story heads in the next week?
I think that it's going to be Loki following her, and while back with the TVA, it's going to be played as he abandoned and he ran away. In reality, I think he's trying to protect them.
So here's a
Sure.
quick question. Do you think there's going to be a lot of back at the TVA? I mean, it looked like the TVA was under a little bit of duress.
I think we're going to see Mobius. I think we're gonna see a bit of Mobius through this, trying to figure out what the fuck is Boyce doing.
Okay.
I think Mobius has seen under that shell
Mm-hmm.
of just pure mischievousness and wanting to be free, and has seen that he is indeed someone with a heart that cares. Because Loki's the true anti-hero. He's
Mm.
not necessarily bad, nor is he necessarily good. And I think Mobius sees that he is an anti-hero. So I think we'll see a little bit more of Mobius in it and kind of what's falling apart back at the TVA. But I
Mhm.
think it'll begin to focus more on Loki, but I don't think he's going to give up the TVA. I think that he's going
Mhm.
to somehow remain connected to them, and we'll see that in upcoming episodes.
So one thing that I want to discuss a little bit, because we kind of glossed over it, was Loki's plan.
Mhm.
I had mentioned in the last episode that I thought that Loki's plan was to bomb the TVA, was to use the stolen reset charges and send them to the TVA and take out the TVA with the possibility of bringing back the multiverse. It doesn't look like that's what happened. It looks like, I mean, there was a screenshot going around, and maybe I'll add that to the show notes. But there was a screenshot going around whereupon the 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 bombs, the whatever they're called, the reset charges were sent to different points along the timeline. And I don't know what that means for like the structure of like kind of how the powers work in um in the logic of the TVA. Like I don't know if that means that a whole bunch of different branches that maybe didn't exist were made to
Well,
exist. But
that's what it feels like, because
Mhm.
basically if you set off a reset charge in an area that is already going along as normal, then that shifts things dramatically, wouldn't it? I mean, like especially if we know that the reset charges act in a way that potentially is destructive to whatever matters around it.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know, like I don't exactly know how the reset charge is supposed to work. Like if we if we think that the reset charge is supposed to destroy time, then what does it even mean to have a reset charge?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that the reset charge automatically is destructive. It could be that it has various settings, that one of which includes destruction. But I mean, for all we know, it could be like, oh, this one causes time to go forward faster, or this one causes time to slow down, or whatever. And it could, any number of different things. But I do think there's some sort of like, uh, if you take this medicine when you're already okay, then it's going to cause your body to act differently. So it's not the same as remedying a problem that is there.
So
Interesting.
here's my thought on it.
Okay.
I think that it changes anything that's been touched by the situation when the charge was set. So whatever happened just before that clearly did not belong in anything that was associated with that touching in the timeline.
Mhm.
No longer can exist, especially if it's been altered in any way, shape, or
So
form.
you think the reset charge is very narrow and very localized, and it doesn't
Yeah,
actually destroy
I
existence.
don't. I don't think the boy who ate the stuff survived.
You
I
know,
think they removed him because he had been touched by a timeline and therefore he had been changed.
right. So this was an earlier discussion, and I'd like to bring you in on this. My logic is that you can't destroy part of a reality and leave the rest of reality because it's still a timeline there.
Mhm,
Like in order to destroy a timeline, you have to destroy all of it.
mhm.
So even if the part that's been most changed is the people who came into direct contact with the variant,
Mm-hmm.
once you remove those people from it, you've still created a continuing variant timeline. So you have to destroy the entire timeline in order to truly prune the timeline.
See, I
Well,
don't think that that's what they're doing either. I think they're literally just playing with the timeline. They believe that that's what they're doing, is that they're cleansing the timeline. I don't think that's actually what they're doing. I
Okay,
don't
what do you
think they
think that they're
actually
doing?
know what.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that they're following orders and they're
okay.
doing what they've been told because, like you mentioned at the beginning, it's very much a religious aspect to it. This is how it is. This is what we do. We sit, we
Mhm.
stand, and also with you, etc. Like, it is literally, this is what we do and this is why we do it. And when you question them, they're like, well, because that's what we do. They
Yeah.
don't know why.
So
They
you
don't
think that
understand
they
why.
don't you think that they don't know what they're doing?
They have no idea what they're doing.
Oh,
None. They have zero idea what's happening after they press that button.
I
They just
definitely
know what they've
agree
been
with
told.
that because I mean when you had Loki talk to the guy, he tries to threaten him like, oh, I'll gut you like a fish. He's like, what's a fish? Like
Yeah.
you don't understand the world outside of what knowledge they've given you.
True, but I mean the people who are actually going out into the field and releasing the charges have to know how it works in order to do it.
No,
Well,
not
you
really.
press a button.
Yeah, I
You
mean
Yeah,
know how to
you
operate it,
right,
and
you
you'll
press a
know what
button
you've
and
been
you
told.
know, right, but you know that it erases what is.
But do
you
you?
would know that there is a thing that happens that they have categorized as resetting the
Fixing.
timeline.
Yep,
And
it
so
fixes it.
it could be destruction of matter, it could be redistribution of matter and energy, which I mean that would be, it's scientific, it's still science, so you have to figure out like what exactly happens, but it could be any number of things that we're just kind of beholden to the story that's being told, and we don't really know the
Fair
actual.
enough. I mean, I just think that like these are for the most part, like these are fairly competent people, and the protocols of how they behave are are based on the idea that you want to clear out the space and then you want to set off the charge and get out of there because it will erase something,
Mm-hmm.
like whether it erases the last 10 minutes or it erases everything that ever existed in this variant timeline, everything that could potentially, I mean, the mechanics of it are still a little bit murky, I
Yeah.
agree, but like I said before, if if the minute a variant of you is created, there are two of you, and
Mm-hmm.
that means that there's variants of everything, so you have to get rid of all of the variants, and therein is the problem, because in order to get rid of all the variants you have to remove them from existence.
Mhm.
You don't, I mean, whether you want to call it killing or not, you're still removing a sentient being from existence. Like you said, that little kid, the only thing that little kid did was interact with Loki. The little kid didn't break any laws. The little kid didn't do anything wrong. The little kid was only, because of the fact that that variant interacted with him, he's
Mm-hmm.
now on the chopping block. Now, there's another version of that kid who never interacted with Loki, and that version gets to go on and continue with his existence.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, the terminology that they use is a euphemism. It's I think they know what they're doing, but they're using euphemisms, because to say, oh yeah, we're just eradicating billions of people every 5 minutes would sound pretty horrific. But we're cleaning up the timeline sounds a lot more clinical and sounds a lot more
It's just
nice.
like cleansing.
Yeah,
I mean, ethnic cleansing, it doesn't sound quite so clean
it doesn't
once
sound
you
like
Just
know what
to
actually.
genocide.
shower.
It doesn't sound like genocide. It's just a little smoothing, but because again, what their machines show them,
Exfoliation of the timeline.
exactly what their machines show them is that there's this one timeline and then there are these different branches, and they're like, oh, let's just clip this branch off, even though that branch represents the minimum of hundreds, potentially trillions,
Yeah.
because 5 minutes of existence is still 5 minutes of existence. 10 minutes of existence is still 10 minutes of existence, and you're wiping it all away. So I think that in order to sleep at night or whatever they do, in order to
I don't think this.
accept the reality of what they're doing, they just have to say that a variant, what is that B20 called? A cosmic mistake. A variant is not a valid life. Therefore,
So
they can
yes.
get rid of it.
So it takes me back to, to get historical, to Germany, right? Nazi Germany.
Fair enough.
This is what we're told. This is what we do. This is what we believe.
And they do make the trains run on time.
They do. Those trains are on time. But the thing with the TVA though is that how long have they been told the same thing over and over and over and over and over again without any external change in that? Like the guy who didn't know what a fish was, he has no idea what's going outside of his realm. And in having generation after generation after generation being told the same story over and over again.
Is there generations? That's the thing. Like presumptively, this is all that they've ever done. They don't have a life outside of the TVA.
I mean, time flows differently for them. So I mean, I'm assuming that they are the drones, the worker bees, and they don't have kids, they don't have family outside. Just like
exactly. This is the role that they play in their lives.
But I'm not sure that they weren't bred to do that.
I'm not even sure they've been bred. What I'm saying is that Mobius might have always been Mobius. He may not have a childhood. He may not have before I worked for the there's no before he worked for the TVA.
I don't think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is that every character that we've met in the TVA has always been what they are.
But do they know?
Except for, one clarification, except for Judge Renslayer, who at one point was a hunter and then moved up to becoming a judge. And hopefully we'll find out her story as to how she, was able to move beyond her station.
So I guess the part that confused me with this is they have the different levels and everything, right? But then when Loki goes to the keeper of records and asks for different things, they're all classified, except for certain documents. Of course, they're his own documents. But are those records classified for certain people as well? For other people?
I mean, yeah, presumably, usually when things are classified, there's like a clearance level, So like,
depending on what your rank is, then you would be able to get,
exactly.
And it doesn't seem like it's likely that there's a whole lot of promotion going on.
Yeah.
So then that leads me to believe that there's information that they don't know, that they've just been told this is how we do it.
Yeah.
And they're acting on it.
Right. Well, that goes back to the bureaucracy argument, right? Like you're only told the information that you need in order to do your job.
Yep.
And if your job is just to file documents all day, then that's, you just need to know the procedures for filing the documents. Obviously everyone watches the minutes tapes just kind of like for the overall story of what the sacred timeline is, and to be able to say the chant and all that other stuff. But like they don't need to know the law, the time law. They don't need, even again, going back to the thing, even if we assume that Ravonna is telling the truth and she has actually interacted with the timekeepers, like that's a privileged position of like she's been interacting with the timekeepers, but no one else has, so she's the timekeeper whisperer. She tells everyone else what the timekeepers dictates are, and no one else questions it. In our world, we would be like, immediately, we'd be like, yeah, how do we know that that's coming from the timekeepers and not coming from you?
Right.
But it's the interesting thing about the way that Gugu Mbatha-Raw plays it is that she plays it so matter-of-factly, it doesn't even seem like she's lying.
Right.
Like she's just kind of like, Yeah, the timekeepers, that's what they do, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's basically what we're just beholden to kind of everybody. Really, the only people who seem like they might be under any sort of mischievous pretense again is Loki. But again, we're kind of programmed to think that Loki is like, oh, he's the trickster, so he must be up to something. But yeah, just because they are able to lie with a straight face, it doesn't make it any less of a lie.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean,
But do they
is it a
even think it's a
lie if
lie?
that's what I was gonna,
Oh,
yeah,
hey,
that's what I was gonna
yeah,
say. Is it a
that
lie if they believe it's the truth?
right.
That's
Yeah,
that's where I'm
that's
having a
valid
lot
too.
of problems.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, there's a lot of secrecy being perpetrated. There's a lot of
mhm.
secrecy going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are open questions, and I do think that they will be explored. I think that, you know, where we started out in last week is where we were deeply skeptical of the TVA. No one on the show last week thought that the TVA's goals were anything but nefarious. Um, I continue to think that, but I do wonder whether, um, like, I wonder who's being duplicitous. I wonder about Ravona. I mean, it's gonna break my heart if it turns out that she's just, you know, lying through her teeth. It's definitely gonna break my heart because I don't think Mobius knows. You know, I think he's just kind of in his box, and he's like he said on the show, you know, he doesn't really get hung up on what to believe. He's just kind of
Mm.
like, this is his purpose, and he's doing his best to live out his purpose. But quick question: will Mobius get his jet ski?
I would like to see him be able to get a little taste of mortal life, get to actually live among humanity, not just kind of dictating things. But honestly, I part of me feels like that's not going to happen. And in fact, we might get like a sad reference to it in the event that something pops.
So you're in the camp of no jet ski for Mobius.
Yeah.
Heather, what about you? Jet ski? Yeah or nay?
I don't think he will because that's going to break from the timeline.
All right.
He's not part
Kia,
of the timeline.
jet ski, yay or nay?
He is muted.
I know. I was hoping that Kia would unmute to answer the question.
Kia, come back to us.
Kia variant. The Kia variant has been apparently silenced. I think
She's
Improved.
been fixed.
I think that we will, in fact, get a. I don't know if it's going to be a Mobius variant, but we will definitely get. I'm calling it definite. We'll definitely get Mobius. Coming.
Mobius is going to be like, okay, I'm going to time travel to the biblical Noah's flood and take my jet ski there because everybody's gonna die anyway, so I get to have my jet ski. There's no impact on the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that if you take an anachronistic jet ski to Noah's flood, you probably messing up, you know, the timeline. But I'm
Well, not
thinking
if it's
there.
right before an apocalypse. We already proved that.
Fair point, but he's got to take it from somewhere else. I think he's just going to find himself an aquatic apocalypse, an an aquatic apocalypse, and then he's just going to ride his jet ski there before the world ends, and that's probably going to be his ending. Sad ending for Mobius, but he rides a jet ski before he dies.
Before he has his aquacalypse.
Thank you. His aquacalypse. And final thoughts before we wind down the variant cast this week.
I'm excited to watch next week's episode.
I
I,
know.
I am very ready for that next episode, and I'm still very much loving the music along the way. I really am.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about scores, but I've heard good things about the score, and I concur. I think they've done good things with the soundtrack and score.
So good. So good.
Well, I think we'll leave it there until next week when we set off these charges and a different variant steps out of the little portal window and shows up to talk about week 3 of Loki. I guess what I didn't say. So last week Loki was Mephisto. This week, I suppose we had Lady Loki. Who's Loki going to be in week 3, guys?
I feel like Loki is going to be that's a tough one. That's hard. I feel like he's a bit too tricky to be predicted.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to predict like, PG-13 Loki on Loki action for week 3. We'll get a kiss. We'll get a Loki kiss, and it'll be weird.
Fingers crossed for you to get your dream to come through.
All right, Heather, here's your chance. What's your week 3 Loki prediction?
He's gonna get a taste of his power back.
Mm.
He's
That's
gonna
what-
have some fun playing and toying.
That is one way to say what I just said.
Mine's more of a rated G version. No parental guidance needed.
Wow. We're gonna go ahead and post those Tumblr links. Until next time, let's be high key about Loki. I don't know. I don't have a sign off yet.